Hello, friends. Last Sunday I mentioned how the research of Katalin Karikó, or Kate, her research gave scientists everywhere the key to discovering the COVID vaccine. Her research wasn't always so appreciated. About 20 years ago, the University of Pennsylvania, which is a great Ivy League school, or UPenn, had told Dr. Karikó there was nothing more they could do to support her work. If she insisted on continuing to study the messenger RNA, she would lose her prestigious faculty position and receive a substantial pay cut. To make things worse, that happened to be the same week that Kate had been diagnosed with cancer. And her husband had gone back to their home in Hungary to renew his visa, but because of issues, he would get stuck there for 6 months. At that point, Kate, trying to raise Susan, who had just turned 10, facing 2 cancer surgeries, faced the biggest decision of her career and her life. She says that on the day of the surgery, she made her decision. She would stay, accept the humiliation of being demoted, and resolutely focus her career and life on messenger RNA. It was a hard decision, but it led to a chance meeting that changed everything. Dr. Drew Weissman, a well-respected immunologist, had just accepted a faculty position at UPenn. He says that one day he and this scientist, who was Kate, were fighting over a copy machine back in the days when photocopies of key journals was the only way that we could research. Kids, that was before the internet. As the two of them jockeyed for position over the copier, they were talking and learning about each other's work. Dr. Karikó's funding had disappeared, but Dr. Weissman decided to use some of his funding to further Dr. Karikó's work. She said that technicians who worked on the microscopes made more money than she did, but that Dr. Weissman being supportive was all that she needed. In the coming months and years, Kate's husband got his visa settled and returned to the U.S. She won her battle against cancer, and her daughter joined the U.S. Olympic team, which would win gold medals in the next 2 Summer Olympics. Then finally, in 2005, 30 years after Kate had finished her doctoral work on RNA, she made a dramatic discovery about messenger RNA that she and Weissman had published in a journal. It is nice when the pieces of life start coming together. For those of us who live a faith-based life, those moments remind us that God's providence truly wants the very best for us and for others. For those of us with a faith-based life, this guiding and providing is part of God's love for us and for the world. Listen for a moment as Whitney and Alex use their gifts to point to that love divine that excels above all other love. So that discovery in 2005 was revolutionary for RNA and DNA research, but Weissman and Karikó were so disappointed because it seemed that nobody noticed their article. There were no invitations to give a talk, no requests for follow-up articles, and nothing, not even a request to republish the same article. It was like they had been doing all this work. For Weissman, it was 10 years, for Kate, about 30 years, and they had made this world-changing discovery, but everybody in the world had moved on to other things. Have you ever felt like that? That you're working so hard to do the right thing, but nobody notices or cares? Well, God cares. There is much more to this story that I'm going to talk about next Wednesday, but for now, let's focus again on God's love. The mercy, forgiveness, and grace that our caring God gives are all components of His love. So Chris mentioned this last Sunday, that our offertory special had been changed at the last minute. Whitney was asked by Chris to do it because Emily Blankenship, who had planned to do the special music, wasn't able to be with us because she and Chris, her husband Chris, were at the hospital because their baby had decided to arrive early. So it was on Mother's Day, later that afternoon, last Sunday, that Emily officially became a mother and Chris a father to Lily and Cole Blankenship. What a gift for them and for us as their church family. We also had a gift because Chris knew the gifts of Whitney could fill in that day. And she would make her offering to God, for us, a special song about God's love that was fitting for Mother's Day. It is so unique that some writers have even called God's love reckless. Not reckless because it's inherently reckless, but because when we consider just how willing God is to love us, and then compare that to how we humans normally act, it feels reckless. But if we really focus on it, it moves us to appreciate it more and more. It even moves us to worship this great God, and possibly to love our neighbor at a higher level. Listen as Whitney sings about that reckless love of God.
There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.